Welcome to Two Guys.
Hey, Gil.
and an MBA.
Is he going to do the 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico? They're talking about he's going to do it day one. They're talking about they're going to have a big ceremony of signing stuff, and he's going to sign a 25% tariff on day one.
Yeah.
So, how are you going to deal with your exports there, man?
Well, look, I mean, a lot of it's theater, but it's all a lot of tactics and negotiation. I mean, you got to threaten and then you got to carry out the threat. If not, your threat's going to be meaningless. It's going to be empty, right? So I think he's going to do it. It is causing a lot of concern in Canada, but Canada's it's the weakness of our position with the United States. That's what this is. We haven't thought about, you always assume that you're going to have a partner. And you never looked at why they're the partner, what value you bring to this. What's your value prop? Well, we're just next door. Well, I don't know if that's enough, right? You need to have something really tangible that you can offer. Um,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to do it. He can't back it out. And then they're going to negotiate from there. He's going to get something. Um, I mean, I have hope for Canada. We have smart people. We just gave you Jordan Peterson. Well, not you. We gave everybody else. We just traded him up, right? He's gone. So, we're good. I think maybe it'll stir up better leadership. And it's helped Canada actually be more united. We're a fragmented kind of country with two polarities here, French and English. But I think every hour there's going to be a Trump story, like every hour. Good talking. So we'll see.
It's it's fascinating how he does grab control of the news media. Like, um, I'm into Tony Robbins, and I like to watch Tony Robbins stuff just for encouragement. And I happened upon an interview he did in the year 2000. It's way, way before everything.
Yeah.
And he was talking to Charlie Rose, and Trump came up. Trump came up in the freaking
Yeah.
thing, and then when he came up in the conversation, Charlie Rose wouldn't let go of it because he knew that's going to hook my viewers. And he kept talking about it for 10 minutes when like Tony was like, no, I don't know. I don't know. And he's like, he clearly wanted to get off the topic. And the guy kept talking about Trump.
Really?
And this is
Wow.
before he was even a celebrity, barely. I mean, in the year 2000, Trump in the 90s kind of had a down. He kind of was like down on, he kind of, everyone was laughing at him at that time, I feel.
Yeah.
And this was way before he had presidential ambitions even. And he was still a, fixture in the news media. He knows how to get attention. What you're saying, I think we're going to see a new story every day. uh I think some of the things he, like you said, is theater. I think he has no problem just not doing stuff, just straight up saying he'll do something and not doing it. Like, he never built that wall. The whole campaign he ran in 2016, build that wall, lock her up, lock her up. He didn't build the wall. He didn't lock her up. He immediately pulled back from those positions, and he was just like, whatever, next thing. You know what I mean?
Well,
Next thing.
he did build some wall. He didn't finish it. He
He built
did
a
it.
fence, right?
Well, I think right there was a big deal about they had this super concrete steel that's sitting there. They spent
Okay.
X amount. They were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. The Biden administration. It was like 2 weeks ago, and then
Yeah.
they put an injunction to that. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on.
But he didn't build. The point is, he didn't do what he was gonna said he was gonna do. He said he was gonna
Yeah,
build a concrete wall all the way across the Mexican-U.S. border. I mean, you know,
yeah. Well, I don't know the
I don't
data.
think
I don't
he's
know.
shy about reneging, is what I'm saying. If it'll get him the result, I don't think he's shy about going back on his promises. And I hope
Yeah.
he does go back on the tariff thing, because that's, I feel like, is going to cause too much damage economically. Like,
It's funny the whole tariff thing and 51st state in Canada. They when he first said it, they polled Canadians, right? And initially 90% Canadians said no. The needle is slowly moving now, and a percentage of Canadians are now saying, "Well, what's your deal?" Like, okay, I'm a no, but now tell me what's in it for me. And now this is what he does. He'll introduce this crazy concept. He'll feel it out and see what happens, and then all of a sudden the needle starts to move, and people are saying, "Like, you know what? It wouldn't be such a bad deal to be part of the United States. Like, what's so bad?"
it's like Canada's reverse Brexit. It's like,
Yes.
can America enter something? We need to come up with a better slogan for it. But you know,
Yeah.
uh, it feels like a Brexit moment to me. Like, and
Yeah.
if you look at the UK, it's been mixed, results. I mean, just this is just colloquially, but I mean, I have family there, and like the salaries suck. The quality of life is okay, but like, as far as pay and whatever, it's not competitive compared to even here or Canada or America or
You're talking about the UK?
the UK. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
salaries there are low. Um, and a lot of people in the UK are going to, like, I think a lot of millionaires are exiting the UK. So you're seeing like foreign capital leaving the UK. You have high taxes. It's good that you have high taxes there, because you have a high standard of living, but it's not as high. The taxes are lower than the rest of Europe, and the quality of life is lower than the rest of Europe. So a lot of people are. So I wonder, how will you see a similar effect in Canada? Because I feel like Canada right now is kind of like, um, a nicer place to live than America. I hate to say it, but I mean, the healthcare is better, the pay is more stable, life is just better for the average Canadian than the average, um, notwithstanding the stat that you said the other week about that the average Canadian is poorer
Yeah.
than the average Mississippian, but that's on uh, a real basis, or how is that? Say more about that.
It's per capita GD. There's a chart. I pulled it up, and I've read it before. Their output and production, if you quantify this country, it ranks where Mississippi is, which is pretty startling. I have the chart. I can load it up next time in the chat.
So
But
it's not in terms of the average income or wealth, it's in terms of the
yeah,
GDP of the country. Okay. But the
yeah. Let me.
average citizen in Canada has quite a bit of benefits that typical Americans don't have, I feel.
Yeah,
Have better schools, better healthcare, better
I'll say
outcomes.
this. I'll say this. It's tricky when you look at America as a country. It's better to look at America as a continent because each region in America becomes very different from like if you're looking at the South and Mississippi, you can't compare it to the Northeast, and you can't compare the Northeast to the West Coast. This is a continent, and it's divided by racial lines and cultural lines, right? There's a
Yeah.
different culture everywhere you go. Where in Canada, it's interesting, even though we're a diverse country, other than Quebec, which is predominantly French, the rest is English. We're pretty much the same. There's no, we studied this thing called the Gini score, which looks at social inequalities between groups of people and the spread of it. And uh, California has the worst. There's a huge gap between the wealthy and the poor. It's a Gini metric. But Canada doesn't have that. We have like almost there's very little difference between the super rich and the super poor here. So that's the problem when you try to talk about America. I got to pull up that thing while you
Okay. Yeah.
freewheel.
I guess it's more it's more apt to compare Canada to a US state. Like the total population of
Yeah.
Canada, for example, is 40 million people, which is
Yes.
large, but that's like a tenth of the size of America in terms of population.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the GDP is obviously significantly less than America's GDP too. So,
Okay,
like you're
here it
saying,
is. Yeah, the actual measure is GDP per capita as of 2023, comparing all the U.S. states, the 50, and Canada. And Canada ranks second from the bottom. Mississippi is the lowest when it comes to GDP per capita. Canada is the second lowest. And then you've got every other state after that, from Arkansas, Alabama, Wisconsin, Utah. The top is New York State. So uh, that's what we're dealing with. I can send the chart. It was. I'll have the citation too because it's important, kids. You got to cite it from the Pew Research Center, which is yeah, uh, you know, respected. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And when we always talk about get over the drama and the theater and look at the data. The data points to yeah, there's some disparity, this big disparity between Canada and the United States, but it's valid. There's a valid reason why we're asking why are we such a rich country, but our GDP per capita is so low. And there might be reasons. I'm sure we'll unpack it when we look through the numbers, but that's where we
funny, I'm looking at GDP per capita by country, and Canada, this is off worldometers.info. Canada is ranked 22 and 23 is Kuwait. So there you go.
wow. Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What's the top? Well, who's the top?
Number one is Luxembourg, and Singapore, Ireland, Norway, Qatar, UAE, Switzerland, United States, Denmark, Netherlands. That's the
Hmm.
top 10.
Yeah,
So,
makes
and I
sense.
can tell you that the quality of life, like, gee, that's just one indicator. You can't go totally off that. Like, because I'll tell you right now, there's people in the UAE and Kuwait that are basically living like slaves. And there's another group of people that are living like kings, so like literally.
Hmm.
And so the gap is quite wide, similar to America, I'd say. Like in Canada or Norway or some of those other countries, Ireland, I think that gap is a little smoother, it's a little narrower.
So, there's this great book, Lie with Statistics. It's a really interesting book where, when they're measuring GDP, are they measuring it based on citizens? Or are they just like, how are they measuring it? Like, where do they get their data from? Who are they measuring it from? Because if you're saying that, Kuwait, there's people living like slaves, are they measuring those people?
Yeah, this one says they're taking the entire country's GDP uh, and um, and just dividing by total population.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
and
Okay.
and I guess they have a purchasing power parity capita also.
Hmm.
So that's a factor based on inflation and how much goods cost in one place versus another. For example, like if you lived in New York City and you made $100,000 a year, it's very different than living in Mississippi and making $100,000. Your 100,000 a year goes a lot further, right? Because
Yes,
things are much
I would say.
pricier, right? So
Yes,
uh,
I would
they
say
they they take that into account, and then they compare GDPs and just straight up divide it by the number of people.
straight up
Which,
dividing. Yeah.
yeah, so like you're getting a raw like an average. So yeah, so it's like it's only so good of a like that's what I'm saying. That's one metric.
Hmm.
There's another one from I think we're Human Development Index HDI that goes a lot deeper and has other factors. So they have also health outcomes, like how long do people live, what's the rate of child mortality, and then they have education, like what's the literacy rate and how many people are in school, and they look at other things, and then they also have economic indicators like how what's the salary like and everything like that. So that's a more complete picture of what it's like to live in a place than just GDP, like, but I think it's still powerful. Like if you look at the bottom of the chart, let's do that. Let's look at. Remember we looked at mod six. We got to look at the extremes, right? So
Well, the
you
tails
look
of
at
the curve. Yes.
right, yeah, the
Yeah.
tails. Look at the fat tails. The bottom is like Cuba, Yemen, Lebanon, Afghanistan, still Central African Republic, uh, Congo, Chad, list goes on. But basically,
Yep. Shout
subjectively,
out.
common sense.
Yeah.
Shout
I
out.
like to I like to shout out Chad because it's an African country, but the guy's name I just found it's always really cool. I don't even. Someone says Chad, I'm like shout out Chad because it needs love too, right? Look where it's at the tail of this thing. Chad.
Please consider subscribing below.
Thank you for being with us. Please leave your comments, feedback, what you think about us, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.